Forward. Ho! Left, 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 right. Your left, 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 right. Bound on, bound on.
Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes. They hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call before it hit the news. No clue what they were about to do. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the Finish This Fight podcast back on the air. Y'all, last week I was in Georgia, and man, I ran into more challenges trying to get this show produced from another state, another computer. We dropped the ball, but I'm back here. We're rocking and rolling. If y'all been following me for any amount of time, you know what I'm about. Combat veteran, country music singer, love God, love my country, hate what's going on. And so almost everyone that's come on this channel, this podcast, has been in a battle. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've worn a uniform. Doesn't mean that they've raised their hand, signed the dotted line, any of that stuff. But to qualify to come on this show, you have to have been through a battle. And the next guest, I'm excited to have on, not just because she's pretty and she's smart and she's got courage, but she's a daggum warrior. I want you all to say hello to a great friend of mine right down here in West Palm Beach, actually in Boca. A great friend of mine. Say hi to Debbie Faris. Hi, Debbie.
Hey, Glenn. Good to see you.
Yeah, was that like the best introduction you've had today so far?
I don't know if I can live up to that introduction, Glenn.
Well, normally when I'm talking about you, I always whisper and tell people, and I got a crush on her too because she's so pretty. So, Debbie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on, and it's a pleasure to talk to you and your audience.
Well, we're going to have a good time today. Let's talk a little bit about where we met and how this began. What the kind of the things that we've done together. And my memory serves me. I had heard your name before, but we actually met when we were doing a show in West Palm Beach. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about that? Because I remember you, I think Dr. Judy Mikovits, maybe Dr. Lynn.
Dr. Lynn, I brought Dr. Lynn. I was actually, I think, speaking at that event with Sue Trombino. We impact the nation. I was representing them. So, I've always had a deep interest in the health freedom movement, but that is not my lane. My lane is election security. So that's what I was there to talk about.
Are you really sure that you know what your lane is? Because I've kind of watched you for the last 4 years. I don't think you're sure.
Well, my lane has expanded, right? Or I narrowed it down in the last 4 years because, coming from Venezuela, being born in Panama, went to school in Mexico, we understand corruption as Hispanics. We understand corruption. We know that the government is not to be trusted. I just did not think that was the case here in the U.S.
Yeah,
that would be. I thought this was a different country. So when 2020 happened, I was just astonished it was happening in this country, and so that's when I got into the fight.
Well, see, my eye-opening moment happened in 2017 when I was arrested without any evidence and held for 73 days, first 23 without an attorney. Because I was the same way up to this point. I couldn't believe it would happen in the United States of America. And then I realized this is not the country that I fought for, and I began to really research. So I didn't really get into the fight until 2020, but I was preparing for battle, I think. You just jumped right in when your eyes were open. Let's talk about that a little bit. 2020, the COVID debacle and all the stuff that went with it.
Yeah, the COVID debacle, everything that went with it. And I could see that something was terribly wrong from before, but I didn't really understand because I had, and this is part of my story, which I wrote in my book, because we're here to talk about my book. No, but I had really turned off the media in I think it was 2012, after Benghazi happened, because I just felt insulted that they would lie to me as I was watching what was unfolding, and then the subsequent lies that came after that. So I turned off the media. I wasn't aware of much politically. And then 2020 was stolen from us. And that's when I'm like, something is seriously wrong with this country. And so that's when I started doing a deep dive, became an election security advocate here in Florida. And that's how you and I connected, when I was in that fight. Since then, I've not backed away. I've moved into a much more precise area, which is training candidates, future candidates, people that are thinking of running for office, into the business of electioneering. Because a lot of us just know from campaigning what we saw on the West Wing, and it's not that. So that's kind of my political lane right now.
You know, it's amazing to me how large this country is, but how small it is at the same time, because I actually turned my news off, the news off somewhere around 2000. Mm-hmm. And mine was for a different reason, because I didn't want the negativity. Every time I turned it on, it's the storm of the century. Oh, the worst shooting we've ever seen.
Yeah. Historic this, historic that, and everything. Yes, I agree with you.
And I'm thankful that I turned it off, because I think I resisted a lot of the programming. Now, I had programming because I believed the 9/11 things, according to what they told us, until all this crap happened to me. I believed that. But you just mentioned Benghazi. We actually have John Teagan coming on Thursday. He's going to be on the show here with me on Thursday, and we're going to talk pretty deeply about the Benghazi debacle and how bad that was. How did you, when you mentioned that, how did it hit you that you knew that they were lying? What was the giveaway?
Well, so the first thing was, obviously the whole, I just remember the clip of the news that it was getting serious, that the ambassador had been surrounded, etc. So that's where I wasn't really listening to much news, but that caught my attention. And then that there was an uprising. But then within 45 minutes, they started saying that this uprising was caused because of Facebook and video postings and insurrection because of the media. And I'm like, that's not the case. And so it was just that little bit. And then obviously the narrative started changing. And I'm like, no, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So that was the last straw.
And then you find out the truth of what was going on and the weapons and all this stuff. And good Lord, we've been lied to on every front.
Well, the thing that is the fact that, what is news? That the president is pardoning the turkey, for heaven's sake. That is, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, so this is insulting my intellect. And then really Benghazi was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Mm-hmm. That was it for me. So I turned it off, and I told
turned that off, and then 2020 rolled around.
Yeah, I couldn't avoid the news because you see it on your feeds or whatnot, but I wasn't listening to it, which I think was important, because I wasn't getting programmed. And that's why when 2020 rolled around, I was able to see things with very fresh eyes. And then I started learning, first about the election. Then I went into all kinds of different subjects, but I always stay within elections. But the whole COVID narrative, I have a healthcare background. I was working at that point. I was doing some business consulting in the clinical trials. And I'm like, this is no way to conduct a clinical trial. I mean, when you do a clinical trial, you ensure and double ensure that you do not have pregnant women or the possibility of pregnancy in testing devices. And this wasn't even a device that went into your body. This is something that you wear on your shoulder. It's a magnetic thing. And so we really had to make sure that no possibility of pregnancy would intrude into the study. And then you all of a sudden see this shot being given to children, which you never do, and pregnant women. I'm like, there is something deeply wrong with all of this.
Well,
So
whether you were watching the news or not, if you knew anybody in the area that was taking the thing, there was the rate of babies being stillborn at that point was dramatically phenomenal. Dramatic, and I'm talking 7th and 8th month. And
I know.
obviously, it wasn't talked about on mainstream, but you would hear about it in the street, and it's sickening to me.
Well, that was the other red flag was that I this all started for me on Facebook when I thought Facebook was a clean platform before I got shadow banned and censored. But I was part of different groups, and within hours, one group had mushroomed to 80,000. And these were reporting the adverse effects of the vaccine. And the other one was 120,000 on Facebook. And they were shut down like that.
And then you got banned for having a prayer group, if I remember right.
Yes, I got censored and shadow banned because I was posting prayers. So this just, your eyes could not, if you were paying attention, you could see it happening. And so that was my big fear, we're ancestrally Chinese. My grandfather left China, escaping communism. My family left Venezuela, leaving that behind. And I'm like, there's nowhere else to run. And this is the country where we're living on. I wasn't born in the U.S., but I have 3 sons that are American citizens, and this is where we chose to live. So, I worked really hard to advance them after I lost my husband 15 years ago. And so I'm like, I'm not going to leave this back for them. No way.
Yeah. And that's a whole story. There's a lot that I don't know about. And let's talk about that in just a moment. So you and I met at a show in West Palm, and we'd made friends together or separately. Maybe I made them from you. Maybe I might have pulled some of your friends onto my side too. Because Dr. Judy Michaelitz is a great friend of mine now. Dr. Lynn Lafferty lives down the street. But we got pulled into the health world at that point because of the debacle that was taking place. And then we just became friends, and God put us on a mission separately, but it seems to always kind of come back together.
Yeah, but you've always been very supportive. Remember when we did that program in, I think it was Flagler. I think I did it in Flagler. And you came and you sang the national anthem for that. Accountability project that we were doing on one of the legislators here in Florida. We were exposing, we were just asking questions. There seems to be a conflict of interest between your net worth and the bills that you have passed. So thank you for supporting that one.
Well, yeah, you're more than welcome. And then the whole change of my life happened about a year ago. And I thought I was just writing a song, and that's turned into this monster. That turned into a movie, and now it's becoming a book and a podcast and a foundation. But I picked up the phone one day. I said, Debbie, I need a tough butt woman that's a warrior in this movie. Would you help me? And you did. And I wish I would have uploaded the scene that you and I filmed for Finish This Fight: Diary of a Pissed Off American Soldier. But Debbie Faris, to me, is a warrior, and she's seen the bad. And she's seen the good, and she's seen the breakdown of the United States of America. So you helped me, I helped you. We're just become great friends. I want to talk about your book in just a moment. I want to segue because I got to get this one out of the way. I want to show a quick teaser. Y'all know what's been going on in my life. If you've been paying any attention at all. We just got back from New York about 3 weeks ago. The foundation took Joshua home to New York City, and he was able to take his first steps in about 3 years. Let me show you something about that real quick. I want to talk to you about the fundraiser that we've got coming up. And then, Debbie, we got the rest of the time to talk about this book. So hang tight.
So I had a 60 millimeter mortar that landed 3 feet in front of me. And so it didn't cook off. And so it technically, they would consider it to be a dud, but it wasn't a dud. It had a broken propeller on it. I got pictures of it. I carry with me and stuff. It's about the size of a 1.5 liter bottle, but it has kill radius about 25 meters, 20 to 25 meters. So basically, if that round would have went off, then confirmed dead would have been 20 to 25 meters. Been 31 months since I've been able to stand on even with a brace, or being able to take one single.
Well, I think we hung up there for some reason. I don't know why. Y'all, the mini documentary is done. We're going to release it this week. It'll be on my YouTube channel. It's going to go all over the country. We have turned this thing into the Finish This Fight. Walk for a Hero, Joshua's Journey. And the next 9 weeks are going to be very intense. You're going to see a lot from me. You're going to see my little short fat butt walking an awful lot. And people all across the United States picking up this mantra of Walk for a Hero. If you are interested, you be watching here in the next 2 weeks. We're going to launch it right here. We're actually going to do a telethon on the Patriot Prayer Network on September the 6th, which is a Saturday. So be hanging around for that. Be ready for that. A lot of your favorite influencers are going to be there. I've got Shamika Michelle going to be on. What looks like Chad Prather's going to be there. We've got the feelers out for Gunther Eagleman and Tom McDonald. So I think we're going to have some good people there. We're going to have a lot of fun. So the Finish This Fight, Walk for a Hero, Joshua's Journey begins soon. And this is a chance for you to be a part, not just for Joshua to walk again, but for 10 others to walk again by the end of the year. The goal is 100 by the end of next year. And I can't do it alone. I need your help. So that's my spiel for today. Finish This Fight. Keep watching. Go to givesendgo.com/finish this fight. If you got about $15,000 laying around doing nothing, you want to send it to me, send it on over. We'll put it to good use. Now, let's talk about some other stuff. Miss Debbie, what do we got here?
So this is my baby. I like to say everybody, absolutely everybody has a story, especially when you're our age. We've all been through trials and tribulations, but not everybody writes it down. So I happened to journal the few months before and then the year after my husband passed away. I was at the time, I had small kids. My eldest was 10. My youngest was 2. I have 3 boys. And his death, while he was not well, his death was totally unexpected. So I happened to journal all of that as a form of therapy and also to keep in touch with my community. And then 4 or 5 years later, I realized that I had material that was very gritty, very honest, but it gave you a window into what that's like. Because not everybody might want to help you. People might want to support you, but they may not want to touch those hard points and bring you back to those moments.
Well, Debbie, there's a real gift and a talent because I think very few people are willing to be transparent to the point of exposing pain. And I think that's what you've done here.
I did that for many reasons. One of them is we are in a health crisis right now. I had written the book because I could see the uptick in cancers for younger people. And I thought that was going to be the issue. Never did I imagine that we were going to have COVID and the after effects, but I had just started to see more cancer. Remember, when I lost my husband, I was very unique amongst my peer group. I was relatively young and no one else had ever experienced this was not happening. So that was my first reason, I wanted to have.
Can we talk about what it was? What was it that took your husband's life?
So in our marriage, yes, and I'm very honest about this because I also want to address it. We had what looked pretty much like a picture perfect marriage, but under it there were issues. One of them was, unbeknownst to him, there was alcoholism in his family, and he was using it as a coping mechanism for the stress in his work. And then when you add on to that, he had an accident, and he was given prescription pain medication. This is more than 15 years. This is about 20 years ago when the addictive nature of these medications was not well understood, much less well disclosed.
Well, that was when Florida pill
mills
were everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were one of those early victims of the Sackler debacle, unbeknownst to us what was going on. So there's a lot of that I talk about in the book, but we had, I thought, overcome that phase and had emerged a much stronger marriage. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, we had rehabs, we had resuscitations involved and all of that. So it was very harrowing. But having said that, we emerged, we thought, as a stronger marriage. That's why there's such a difference between in age. The third child was conceived after we had overcome all of these issues. And then his health took a downturn. We thought it was depression and anxiety. And lo and behold, it was something else. And he ended up dying of a heart attack. Okay. So I talk about that. That was not expected. And with that, our whole world turned around.
Right.
So
right. That's brutal. I will tell you this, Debbie, everyone that I know in this movement that's doing anything of any value has gone through something harrowing. And if you think about it, probably you will say the same thing. Almost everyone that's really doing something with their lives right now, God allowed them to go through things that could have killed them.
The other thing that I address in this book is exactly that. God's presence in the darkest hours of our family. It's my personal account of where God showed up. And there's so many times that you hear that God allowed, and that really grates the widow, because if God allowed that death, then why does he allow the drug trafficker, the human trafficker, to still be alive?
Yes.
So I like to reframe it as God does not allow our human sinful nature. That's what happens, but God is there to bring you peace and to help you get through these darker times.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the book is about, an honest account. And what I realized is that because I had journaled this phase, this period of my life, I had something that I could go back and revisit. A lot of us have been through difficult times, but you don't want to relive it, honestly. And there's something in the brain that actually helps you forget these traumatic times. I just happen to have it written down. And with that, I figured I could help other people as well. So that was good.
And you've just released the book, is that correct?
No. What happened was, this is where it intersects. I released it in 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I released it in September, October of 2020.
Debbie, how did I not know that all these years? I didn't just know. I'm just till a couple of weeks ago.
Well, because what happened was I released it. It went out, and let's just say I recovered my investment, which was good. It wasn't much, but I did. And so it went out. It helped a lot of people, but I didn't really give it a lot of marketing, because if you recall, November 8th, 2020 was when our elections were stolen.
Yeah.
Literally about a month after I had released this book.
Mm-hmm.
So I really pivoted my life to election security. And that's why this book has languished in the marketing shelf of the to-dos. And it just so happens, I say, God has a plan. He sure does, and a sense of humor, because about a month ago, this Dean Jones, who is a Hollywood artist and producer and director and screenwriter, contacted me and said, I want to make this into a movie. Wow. So that's why we're talking about this now, because I'm excited about this.
Well, while we're talking about that, where can people go to find your book?
On Amazon. I self-publish, so go to Amazon. The easiest way is type in my name, Debbie Faris, and the title of the book is Beyond the Breakpoint, and it's right there on Amazon. Okay,
so I'm going to try to type while you're talking, because I am my own producer today.
Oh,
at Amazon.
Yeah. Glenn, I'll tell the audience there's two versions there. There's a hardcover. I don't want you to buy that one. I want you to buy the less expensive one because the hardcover was a second marketing company. I'm not too happy with them. So
let's ban the hard copy.
I can't get it off of Amazon. I've tried. I need to try harder. But anyways, it doesn't matter.
Well, so we're going to scroll that across the bottom. So I'm interested. What can you tell me about your book becoming a movie?
Well, that was kind of crazy, Glenn. So I had been receiving a lot of calls because there was interest in marketing my book, but I just kept on, hanging up the phone, not interested. There's a lot of scam in the industry. Apparently, you can get on a list and then everybody approaches you with the idea to market it. And then anyways, so that being said, had been happening for several months. And then I met in a political fundraiser, actually, I met Dean, and he was very creative. My husband was extremely creative. He was one of the top photographers in the world in his craft. So I gravitate to that, and we started to talk. And that was about 6 months ago. So I asked Dean, hey, would you take a look at this and tell me that it's not a good idea to make anything out of this? Because that's really what I was looking for. I wanted to be able to hang up on those marketing calls. And lo and behold, I forgot I had sent it to him. Many months passed, and about a month ago, he called me and he said, this book I want to make this into a film. So I'm excited because he's a really nice guy. He's in Hollywood, but he moved out of Hollywood. He lives in North Carolina. He just produced, it hasn't been released yet, but it's called Another Life, and it's starring Kevin Sorbo. It's Kevin Sorbo's latest movie. Mm-hmm. He just did a documentary with Dean Cain, and Dean has received Emmy awards for his work on Star Trek, and he was also on the set with Pirates of the Caribbean. So, it's just a very, very seasoned producer, and I think it's going to be a wonderful collaboration.
You know what? I am so happy for you, but I do want it to be known. There's about 2,000 people watching today, so we've got some witnesses that I was the first one to put you in a movie.
You are the first one, for sure.
I was the first one. And so let's write that down. Today is whatever day it is. And I want it to go down in the history books whenever this thing all blows up for you.
On record. Glenn
yes.
First. Glenn. Now, I'm not going to be in the movie. I'm just going to be,
don't be saying that. You never know. You never know. You carry yourself very well, Debbie. Well, congratulations on the book and the movie and moving forward. What else is going on in your life right now?
Well, right now, one of the things, I still remain engaged in the political process. And one of the things that I offer is we really need, I call it build the bench. So we all focus on the congressional races and the senators and the president and the governors, all the shiny objects in the politics. But really, what we need are people in the local offices, because that's where the levers of power are being pulled. And when I mean local offices, I mean dog catcher, water control, mosquito control, airport authorities. And so I teach a course for grassroots conservatives on the business of electioneering, because it is a business and you need to understand certain fundamentals before you even decide to get in.
Right.
So I teach that, and that's kind of where I've resided lately.
That's awesome. Well, Debbie, let me interrupt because somebody did record that for me, August the 12th, 2025. Thank you, Kilburn, for putting that in writing. So we've got it. It's out there forever. The internet's forever. We've got it out there. So you're working in electioneering again. You're back in that world. You got some other things going on. Let's go backwards a little bit. So, Debbie, when you and I first met, we talked about some stuff about really what was going on, because I was new into the political world. You were somewhat new into the political world, but you said some things that were pretty profound coming from where you come from. And I think that's a really strange, unique, wonderful, beautiful place to be. I mean, I don't know anyone of Chinese descent, born in Panama, raised in Venezuela, and educated in Mexico, that's become a U.S. citizen. And what that does, I mean, it's cool, it's traveled around and all that stuff, but it's given you perspectives from a lot of different political realms. Talk about that for me. You were, how old were you when you moved to Venezuela? You were pretty young, if I remember right.
I was 4 years old when we moved to Venezuela. My dad was contracted to set up a manufacturing facility there. And so I grew up in Venezuela back in the days when Venezuela was in the top 20 economies of the world.
Yeah.
Venezuela was a
Beautiful, prosperous, wonderful place.
Super prosperous. I had friends that would come for the weekend to shop in the US, just take a weekend trip to shop. We grew up in a time when Venezuela was extremely wealthy. I'm very grateful to that country for what it afforded my family. And so, yes, that's the Venezuela that I knew. And it is right now a figment of my memory because a generation or more has been lost. A quarter of Venezuelans have left Venezuela since 2010 or earlier. So you have the youngest, the brightest, the best outside of the country. What you have left in Venezuela are those that, for family reasons or business reasons, have not been able to leave, or those that are attached to the very corrupt government of Maduro and Chavez. And that, and let us not be naive about this. The reason that government exists is because Venezuela is the logistics hub for the trafficking around the world. Venezuela sits at the top of the South American continent. It's got a very strategic location. And so it has become a narco realm, and Maduro keeps that there. So you've got that going on. And I'm digressing. We left before all of that. We left in the 90s.
Right. Well, but your mother and father had wisdom and vision from before, though.
Well, this is an interesting story. So I was a child when a lot of this was going down, but first and foremost, when Venezuela's downfall started, it was obviously already very corrupt. And two of my father's friends, one was Cuban and one was from Peru, had told him, you need to get all your money out. There is a big devaluation coming. For those of you that have never experienced a devaluation, that's when your currency starts losing value. So whatever you have in that currency could plummet 50%, 30, 50, 70% in one day. And that is, so my dad, you know, we came from Panama. The currency in Panama is the US dollar. So that never happened. He had never experienced this. But as this conversation was occurring, he came to the US to do an executive MBA at the University of Stanford in California. And he was amongst the top executives of, the country. And he realized that his salary was the highest. And he could not believe that coming from a third world nation, yes, he was a top executive, but third world, he was earning more than a VP of Johnson & Johnson in the United States. So when he got back, he's like, yes, something is really wrong. And they got all their money out. And I just remember, a flurry of activity, my mom running in and out of the house, and they got the money out, about only $5,000 left in the bank account. And then Black Friday happened. And with that, massive devaluation, almost 70% of the currency. So that was the beginning. I was of my class before Venezuelans. It was very common to go abroad to complete your studies. The local universities would be on strike, and it would not be unheard of for it to take 12 years to complete your degree if you went to a public university. There were a few private ones. And that was, the normal 4 or 5 years. But a lot of people used to come to the US or other countries to complete higher education. Of my graduating class, I was the only one that was able to leave because of the economic situation.
So your parents were warned and saw the signs in a nick of time, basically.
Well, they saw the financial signs in the nick of time. So they got their money out, but they loved Venezuela. We had a really nice life there. And so they had contemplated staying in Venezuela for retirement. What happened was the situation got worse and worse. And then insecurity started. It was always an insecure country, but it really got bad to the point where my parents were on a Sunday. Imagine on a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock, thieves broke into my home, tied up my dad at gunpoint, and robbed our home.
Wow.
So with that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's when they decided we're leaving. We cannot stay in this country, because it became personal. You know, a lot of people don't do things until it becomes personal.
So the next few questions that I'm going to ask you folks, or ask you, Debbie, folks, I want you to pay attention right now. I want you to really pay attention right now. As a lot of people, and I was one of these for the longest of times, a lot of people have never been exposed to what Debbie's talking about right now. And it's almost like that can't happen here. That's not possible for that to take place here. But y'all, the signs are all around us that there's some very, very strong possibilities of some major things taking place very soon that will affect us. Will it affect us in a way that it did Venezuela? Debbie, I don't know. I don't know that answer. But I do know we have possibilities of things happening in this country. We're not immune. We're not immune from the corruption. We're not immune from the treachery that's taking place. And don't think that that's not going to trickle down and affect the rest of the country. So Debbie's got a unique perspective, is where we haven't ever seen that. Debbie, you've seen it, and your family has seen it multiple times, from communism in China to the downfall of Venezuela. Now here, from election being stolen 2020 to the COVID debacle. Talk to me. What's happening now? You've been through hell once. What's going on now? Are you concerned?
You know what? I'm not as concerned as I could have been. Let me tell you, if President Trump if this past election would have been taken away from him, yes, absolutely. I think what we need to realize, though, is that America as a country has already fallen off the cliff. What we have right now is an olive branch extended to pull us out of this abyss.
I want you to say that one more time. I want you to stay there and say that one more time. The America that we believed we were living in, or that we believed is really no more, is it?
No, it fell off the cliff. Mm-hmm. Probably in 2001 after 9/11.
Sister, I'm probably gonna be the only time I disagree with you. I think it was way earlier than that.
Possibly.
I
Yes.
think it was decades earlier than that.
Could have been with President Kennedy's assassination.
It could very well have been, because there was some big changes that we're just now finding out to be true, that the conspiracy people have known for decades, that I just said, oh, that couldn't happen. That's not possible. Well, dadgum sure is possible.
I have a story to tell you about that. You know, back in the day when I worked in global manufacturing, I had this limo driver that would come. He was dedicated to me because no one wanted to drive as far as I was one of the executives that lives the farthest away. So Barry used to come and pick me up, and I became, you know, when you ride an hour or so, 3 or 4 times a week, or a month with someone, you start to develop a friendship. So eventually, I think Barry felt comfortable enough to tell me a few things, and this was after 9/11. And he just kept on telling me about 9/11, about President Kennedy, about the Fed, so much stuff that at one point I just thought Barry was deranged, because it was all this conspiracy. Well, there isn't a week that I go by and I think Barry knew something 20 odd years ago. He was right, because everything he's told me has come to pass. At the time, I just thought he was deranged, but my bad.
I was there too, Debbie. I had friends telling me, oh, the Twin Towers were demolition, and you know, Building 7 was never touched, and it just fell into its footprint. How could that be? And I'm like, y'all, I fought for this country. They ain't going to do something like that. And they did. Dadgum, sure enough, did.
Yeah.
I was blown away.
I just have to say, because you see such a dichotomy in this movement, and those of us that have persisted have so much faith, so much love for the country. And you see that side of the United States. So this is what you want to generalize. America is one of the most generous countries in the world. Whenever there is a crisis, the first ones that are there sending blankets and clothes and food are the Americans. So there's this dichotomy of the goodness of America and its people, and then the perversion of the system that has systematically occurred in the last, I don't know, I say 20 years, maybe it's 50 years, maybe it's 60 years. I don't know that when it actually happened. But for sure, this country, as I say, it's not what we constitutionally aspired it to be. I'll never forget when I started all my advocacy, my mother, who was educated in the American system, says, well, that's not happening because this is America. Imagine she, although she's Panamanian, she was educated in the American system, went to Berkeley and the University of Florida. And she's like, no, that can't happen in America. There's freedom of speech.
Yeah.
It's like, Mom, please do not talk about what I'm doing because I just rather you be discreet. So.
And speaking of discreet, that's where a pseudonym came into play. How many times have you let people know that you're actually the one and only praying mantis?
Yeah, that cat is out of the bag, I guess, but not a lot of people know that it's me. So what happened was I was at J6. I went there to pray with a bunch of other soccer moms, and what we saw there was not what was being said on the media. But again, I come from Latin America. I know what political persecution is. And after that, I just decided to be very circumspect. And my friends wanted me to continue publishing my prayers and my commentaries. So I found Substack and I write under the pseudonym of Praying Mantis. So I have a...
See, that blows my mind, Debbie, because I found out in Michigan a couple of years ago that you were a superstar. And I just saw you as Debbie Faris. And we don't remember, we were in a room with somebody.
Michelle,
that's right, Michelle May. And we started talking about that, and somebody brought up Praying Mantis, and she said, "You're Praying Mantis? I've been subscribed to you for years." So you've touched people in all over the United States, 40 different countries, with your Substack newsletter, and you're still publishing that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I still publish, and it's very eclectic in terms of my topics because I really publish whatever God has prompted me to write about. So I obviously cover the elections, I cover politics, but there's a little bit of health in there. There's just whatever catches my attention, but it's a commentary. It's a perspective, maybe a little history lesson, and then of course a prayer. So I'm on Substack, which is where all conservative writers seem to have coalesced, and then persecuted ones. And then I'm also on Spotify. You can find me on Spotify under Praying Mantis.
That's outstanding. I'm going to try one more time to play this little trailer of Joshua Home because I think it's very important. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to have some final thoughts. I want to know what you feel like the future holds.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Let's try this again.
So it's been 30. So I had a 60 millimeter mortar that landed 3 feet in front of me, and so it didn't cook off. And so it technically they would consider it to be a dud, but it wasn't a dud. It had a broken propeller on it. I got pictures of it. I carry with me and stuff. It's about the size of a 1.5 liter bottle. But it has kill radius about 25 meters, 20 to 25 meters. So basically, if that round would have went off, then confirmed dead would have been 20 to 25 meters. Been 31 months since I've been able to stand on even with the brace, or being able to take one single step. So it's been 31 months to the day yesterday.
And then God leaned in and he said, "You know what? You're going to do a foundation. You're going to be the one to help these boys and some girls, I'm sure, get to walking again, back on their feet."
it became so real when we physically came here and I physically got to see face to face to that unit. And knowing that, I mean, like I said, it's pretty much like an avatar. I mean, I felt like I, plugged in and we became one, like I was breathing with it, like, I mean, it just incredible. I mean, I can't even imagine, I can't even describe the feeling that I have, but like, it was like deep down inside of me, it's like, you know what, I felt like I can fight again. I really am able to stand again, and I'm like, I can do this.
Like, I guess the sense of pride, like to stand tall, no matter what height you are. Not a jab at Glenn, but just to stand. Just to stand, I think is huge. We take it for granted.
Y'all, we got an emotional moment, a woman crying, and she still got to make fun of my heights during the middle of the tears. Debbie, you and I have known each other about 3 years. For 4 years, this has been a mission of mine. I did a show with General Michael Flynn 4 years ago, May, and had a chance to see a Marine stand up and walk around after being 7 years paralyzed in Afghanistan. He was using one of the old style that's kind of out of date, but they're still using them, where you have to have canes to help balance yourself to walk. And I saw this guy walk around the room and saying, now he gets a chance to someday walk his daughter down the aisle. He can reach the top shelf for his wife. He feels like a man again. And I'm in the corner doing what I'm trying not to do right now, just crying like a baby. So 4 years later, 3 years later, God tells me it's going to be my responsibility. And a year later, we're in New York City, and Joshua Holm taking his first steps in almost 3 years. The freedom that was on that man's face when he stood up and walked around that room and hugged his wife, standing up, hugging his wife. That may not even make sense to most people. But when you're a man, it's emasculating to have to reach up when you're used to not doing that. I'm kind of used to reaching up and hugging people. I'm good with it. But, when he's 5'11" and he's 3'8" because of the wheelchair, there's a sense of freedom and there's a sense of power to be able to stand up and walk again. And I just saw it. Y'all, we get a chance to help this man. He was in the clinical trial. We got that done. We now need to purchase the home unit when FDA approves it and becomes available later this year. And I need your help to do it. So go to Give, Send, Go. I'm going to put that up. Go to givesendgo.com/finish this fight. If you can help, $5, $10, $20, $100, whatever you've got. Don't take food off your table. But if you can help, every little bit helps. This total we've got to come up with now is about $140,000 for this unit. We're going to be going hard for the next 9 weeks, doing some fundraising, and I need your help. I need your help. I need you to walk. I need you to tell people about it. I need you to contribute. I need you to come to the event. I need you to give people this information so I can talk to them. This is so much bigger than me, and I need your help, y'all.
One of the things that I want to add to that, Glenn, of course, I haven't had the physical situation that you're presenting here, but I was one of those people in the community. I was the doer, the giver, and it was always a privilege to be able to be that person that could provide for others until what happened to me happened. And all of a sudden, I needed to accept that I was on the receiving side and I needed all the help. And that's one of the reasons I wrote this book, is because we are losing the sense of community in this country because of COVID, because of the lockdowns, because of mobility. We are losing our communities. And so one way that we can come together is as a community is to be part of this And what I want the audience to understand is that when you're on the receiving end, you are giving other people the grace to be able to help. And that is opening the doors for people to open up their hearts. And I had to become okay with that. And then I realized that it was actually a privilege.
It's a difficult place to be on the receiving end. It's a difficult place to be for me on the asking end. To this point, I've funded everything God has had me to do. I funded out of my pocket. My pockets are dry now because this is so much bigger than me. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. Debbie, I'm not a millionaire. And so to get this job done, it's going to take a tribe of people, a pretty dadgum big tribe of people. So, folks, givesendgo.com/finish this fight. Debbie Faris, go to Amazon, Beyond the Breakpoint, and support this lady that's a warrior that I love so much. We got a few minutes, Debbie. What's the future hold for you, and what do you see taking place in Venezuela right now? There's some crazy crap going on. How about a $50 million bounty?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm trying to keep my head above the water. Haven't really dived into that. But what does the future behold? Well, right now I did not expect to be involved in a movie, and so that's a new learning curve, a new challenge. I am becoming an executive producer because I've not only given the rights, my intellectual property rights, but now I want to be involved in the creative aspect of it because I want the story to be well represented. And then just yesterday, two of my friends in the administration, one of them being the regulatory czar, Jeff Clark. If you don't know who Jeff Clark is, look him up. He has been one of those. I hope history looks back and admires this man because he was one of the few that decided to stand on principle, on legal principle and moral principle for President Trump. He has been named in all of Trump's lawsuits. He is a brilliant lawyer who the bar has come after him. So there's a lot of lawfare that occurred with Jeff Clark, but now he's in the OMB, Office of Management and Budget. And so a few of my friends that have mentored me and been in this fight with me have proposed me for to be in the administration. So I don't know if that's part of my future. I think I've done a lot already. So not necessarily something that I necessarily want to do, but you never know. So
Debbie Faris may possibly be in the Trump administration. If that's the case, then I want to invite to DC and we'll hang out. I'm
going to be lonely in DC.
I know, because there's a lot of bad stuff there. You know, when I interviewed Alan West, I asked him, how did he not become corrupted? And he said, I just stayed to myself. When they'd come after me and want to take me to the Lincoln Steakhouse for dinner, he said, I'm good. I'll just walk back to my little 1-bedroom basement apartment, stop at Popeyes on the way, and I don't need anything more. So I guess that's one of the ways to stay out of the swamp.
Well, he's a politician. I would be more in a the administration type of thing. So who knows? Yeah, no, we'll see.
Well, Debbie, I love you. I thank you so much for being on. Stay hooked up here for just a minute. When we get done, I want to talk with you back in the green room. Right. KLB or KL Kilburn said, excellent show, excellent guest. She should play herself in the movie.
No,
see, that's what I'm saying. But the other thing that we need to do is remember August the 12th, 2025, Debbie's first movie was announced and was Finish This Fight. Diary of a Pissed Off American Soldier is where she premiered her talent. So I think you got some fans already, Debbie. Thanks for being on. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have some great friends of mine. This is a unique show. So y'all may or may not know my background is Southern Gospel. So from 1992 to 2003, I had a Southern Gospel quartet in Northeast Oklahoma, and I had a business. I traveled on the weekends and we just did that thing, but I became friends with a great couple that were full-time gospel singers and songwriters. And I'm still friends with them to this day. But they had tragedy take place in their lives in 1999 or 2000. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll talk about a lady that was paralyzed, that God restored her ability to walk. She's been on Oprah. She's written books. She's done women's ministry all across the United States. So come back tomorrow at 3:30 for the Finish This Fight podcast with Phil and Pam Morgan. And we're going to have a great chat. We're going to have a great time. I haven't seen these guys in years, probably 15 years. So it's going to be some time to catch up. But it's an excellent story. And you're going to laugh because they're funny. But God's going to be involved tomorrow. So tomorrow, Finish This Fight podcast, 3:30 Eastern time, right here on these stations. I love y'all, and I will see you on the other side. God bless you.
Forward, halt, left, 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 right, your left, 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 right.
Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes. They hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call